Our main question today is on wearing hats indoors in the 18th century. Thanks for joining us today on Questions and Answers with James Townsend and Son. Our first question is from Namidim Oakleaf. That one was hard to say. I do have a question. I've noticed the use of fabric in your cooking. I'm guessing this is like cheesecloth. How do you take care for the cloth after you've used it for cooking, as in how do you wash it? I presume the standard throwing it in the laundry is actually a no-go due to the laundry detergent, or are they a use once and toss kind of thing? Actually, mostly for the puddings. It was when we use cloth in cooking in these 18th century contexts, usually the boiled puddings. And the cloth you use isn't a cheesecloth. Cheesecloth is generally much too loosely woven. You want something much tighter than that, so we use either a natural linen generally or Osnaburg, but you can use some muslin, any kind of a natural fiber kind of cloth you can use. And generally, they can be pretty hard to clean afterwards because this kind of dough sticks to it. And generally I do just throw them in the washing machine to clean them off, but I'll rinse them especially to get any kind of soaps off it an extra time by hand. In fact, even in the 18th century recipes, they say make sure your pudding cloth is clean and isn't soapy. So there you go. Here's a question that came in on the breakfast Q&A that was last week. This one's put by one. Was flour and water pancakes a thing back then? Well, they definitely were mentioned even in William Ellis's 1750-ish cookbook about the Housewife's Family Companion. That mentions specifically very simple pancakes made with just flour and water. So yes, they were probably likely common, especially for poor folks in the 18th century. This question came in on the breakfast sausage episode. This is True Blue Kit. So if a recipe calls for suet to be worked into the dough, it's always asking for rendered suet, not the raw unrendered suet from the kidneys question? Or are there times when the unrendered suet is actually used? It's kind of hard to tell. In the different recipes in the 18th century, suet, many times it doesn't say whether it's a rendered suet or it isn't rendered suet. Sometimes you can catch hints in the recipe itself when it talks about making sure to get rid of the connective tissue. So you know in that context that they're probably referring to an unrendered suet. So it's generally you can't tell. You could use probably either one in many of the recipes, but using the rendered suet is much easier. Here's another one from the last week's Q&A. This one's Cosmic Jello. Thanks for your videos. My children and I really enjoy them. Do you think in 2 centuries people will reenact our daily lives? I'm not sure how to answer that question. That one's a really tough one. I wouldn't believe so. I would think with the amount of things that are recorded for our daily lives today, that they'll probably be so bored of us in 200 years' time that they wouldn't dare reenact what we do. Here's a question that came in on the hardtack recipe. This is, I think it's Thigh Hall 123. It says, why do you always wear headgear indoors? And actually it's a pretty good question, because today it generally isn't considered, proper manners to wear hats indoors. But and it made me have to kind of do a double take on the idea. And so I just went back into the Sifting the Past picture blog, and I said, what's happening indoors here? And grabbed up a bunch of pictures, and I've got them here for you. Here's a Welsh curate. He's in the kitchen and he's peeling potatoes. He's wearing his hat. The tavern scene that we've talked about before when we've done the picture study. This one, most of the gentlemen here are wearing their hats indoors in this tavern, in this public setting. Again, here's another tavern scene. This one from the early 19th century, Scotland. And the vast majority of these folks are wearing their hats indoors, and specifically in a cooking context. Here's a cook from 1771, and he's got a sort of a, I don't know, it looks like a cloth napkin on his head, but it's probably something like a work cap. Many times the cooks specifically were wearing simple cloth caps. Sometimes a bit like a chef's hat, but generally just a simple cloth cap, or a cloth that's made up into a cap. Maybe it's just like a kerchief or something. It seems like the majority of times when you see men with their hats off in indoor pictures, they are they're usually gentlemen with wigs on, and they will generally be either in a very family kind of cozy setting, and not with other people in the room. So I don't know what the rules are specifically for gentlemen with hats in the 18th century indoors. We can kind of imply some general rules here, but it seems like most of the cases, regular men wore hats quite often indoors. Sometimes you see them without. Many times you'll see them with the hats on. That's generally why when I'm doing a cooking video or other kind of video, I am wearing a hat, because you kind of generally see that. I want to thank everyone for their great comments and your wonderful questions. All those are very helpful to us. Even though I can't answer them all, I read every single one. So I want to thank you all for your great support of the channel. Hey, make sure to go and check out our Facebook page. I'll put a link down in the description below. We're doing a lot of new stuff on the Facebook page, so you never know what you're going to see there. Thank you all for everything you do for us, and thanks for watching. If you're a new viewer and you haven't subscribed, press the subscribe button up here. That'll take you to a spot where you can subscribe. I want to thank everyone for watching.